Hello and welcome to Aquarium Dilemmas. I'm your host, ScienceGal Aquatics. I'm Carrie, and this is my co-host,
Jesse, and welcome.
Yes, thank you so much for listening and tuning in to the podcast. We greatly appreciate it.
We have another wonderful episode today. Betta, however you want to fight over pronouncing it.
Yes. There's always going to be a discussion over that, beta, but I would have to say over the years, I've definitely kept guppies the longest, but I have kept my fair share of bettas over the years, and I've made some mistakes. So we just want to talk about some mistakes I've made keeping them over the years that will help you with yours in the future, or maybe one you have now.
Well, and there's a lot to... Bettas are one of the most popular fish as far as you're going to see them everywhere you go.
Yes.
You're going to see them in every pet store, every trade show you go to. They're going to be sitting everywhere in little bitty cups.
Yes, I feel like it's definitely a fish that you would possibly get starting off. It's definitely one that I think a lot of people gravitate because, one, it's so easy to get, and two, it's got the myth behind it that you can keep it in little bitty cups or little bitty environments with no filters and no heaters, and it will be just fine, and it's so easy. And I think that they are easy to care for, but you can't keep them in those kind of environments. And I, in the beginning,
Believed in the myths.
Well, and it wasn't so easy when I was a kid to get your hands on Google and Google everything either. So, yes, I believed in a lot of the things I was told, and a lot of them, they meant well, and it worked to an extent, but it definitely cut down on their lifespan.
Well, I think they can be a longer lasting fish, in my opinion.
I think the longest you could probably is like 2 to 5 years. And in the beginning, I was lucky to get a year. And now, like, it's not perfect, but I can keep them definitely like 3-4 years now versus one at the most in years past.
And that in lies the dilemma. Why can now you keep them this long, and before, basically, for lack of a better way of saying it, you were killing them off?
Yeah, I thought I was doing my very best, and I thought I was giving them their absolute best life, but I was not. I meant well, but I definitely know more. And like I said, I'm not perfect. I still make plenty of mistakes, but I feel like I know more to share.
Well, there's a big misconception in the hobby. It's not, you have to do your research and everything.
Yes,
but there's a lot of learning curve, and like you said, through the years, everything changes.
I don't necessarily think it. Well, it probably changed. The way I kept things most definitely changed, but it's just you can get your hands on information a lot easier now. So I'm more aware of my mistakes because I can read about it more readily than I could when I was 12. And I'm more apt to do that than when I was 12. But starting off, like, the biggest mistake again was just putting them in too small of environments that were not well suited.
Well, then why do they sell them in small cups?
Well, in nature, they're found in small puddles, but I wouldn't say that for long-term care to keep them in like small cups with no oxygen and no filtration. It's not the best. There's better ways to do it.
Well, they're found in small puddles because during the rainy season they move around, and
that's why they're such good jumpers.
Yeah, and they enjoy those small puddles. But
I don't know, the direct history.
And then they go back into more of a creek type area.
There's a difference between a wild betta care and just the Petco, PetSmart, my local pet store beta. There's a difference in care. And I think you have more wiggle room with the domesticated fancy type betta than over something a little wild. Like I said, I don't have any experience keeping the wild caught, and I just feel like the ones that I can get more readily have a little bit more wiggle room, but still, if you make all of these mistakes that I did, it will shorten their lifespan.
Well, yeah, whether domesticated or captive bred.
Mm-hmm. And yeah. So,
and I know that the captive bred beta industry is a very big industry.
Yeah, I'm sure it's huge. I only keep the fancier ones. I appreciate, and it hasn't been till recently that I've seen wild caught ones in person, and they're beautiful. I just don't have the water that it takes for them, and I'm not where I can get that type of specialty water compared to what I have. And even the water I have, it's really hard water. And that's not necessarily the best water for them. So I do add now a lot of things that put tannin in the water, like catappa leaves and driftwood. I feel like that dark water does help them because I do have such hard water, and that kind of helps buffer that. But if you have just slightly softer water to moderately hard, I feel like that would help.
Well, to back it up just a little bit, let's go back to the tank size. What are you thinking then for a betta tank or a beta tank? What are you thinking size
You're
wise?
gonna do this whole beta.
Well, it's just kind of a little rappy, and I kind of like it. But what are you thinking size wise? Because they're they're sold in cups.
They are sold in cups.
They're advertised. You can see them on Instagram, YouTube, any social media. There's people that keep them in vases and everything else. No filtration.
Yes.
What if I want my beta or betta, however you like to pronounce it, live the longest, happiest life it can have, what would be the optimum size tank for that fish?
Well, they're smaller fish, so
species only one, just the beta to the tank.
So they're smaller, so you can get by with a smaller tank. If you have more room, it's always welcomed. But I would say 5 to 10 gallons. I prefer 10-gallon aquariums to keep them in, just because I don't have as much drastic fluctuation, especially in the beginning. Whereas the 5 gallons, sometimes they're a little harder in the beginning to get established, and where you don't have those just fluctuations. So I think, especially starting off 10 gallons, it's a smaller tank. You can still sit it somewhere like on a dresser or in your kitchen if it's the only one you want to keep, or your desk. But you don't have those up and down swings. Whereas that's what makes, for me, 5 gallons and the smaller, like 1 gallon, you can get by with putting them in something really, if you just have it consistent with really good clean water. But I feel like smaller tanks, sometimes they're easier if you know what you're doing and you're a little bit more experienced and you have a lot of plants working for you. So starting off, if this is your first time or you've been having a lot of trouble, I feel like a 10-gallon is the easier way to go.
10-gallon and leaning on them plants like I always like.
And we'll get to that. Like, I always kept, especially in the beginning of keeping fish, like I said, I always have guppies. I always think guppies will be my favorite. I have the most experience, especially with breeding. But I did keep them, beta bettas, as a kid too, with my guppies, they were cold water, and they were covered with snails. And some of them got along with the guppies better than others. I feel like some of them were a little nippier, and some of the guppies through the years kind of nipped at them too a little bit more. But I was not always aware when I would have a snail that would foul the tank, and it would just throw everything off. And being a kid, I wasn't really aware of what was going on, and I wasn't always apt on my water changes. So if you choose to keep tank mates with bettas, it is possible. It is. But just keep an eye on things, because sometimes they might be a little nippy, or something like a guppy might be a little nippy on them. But they do require heat. I feel like they need to be...
So you need to have a tank mate that requires similar parameters.
Similar parameters would be great, because then the point is too, and we'll get into these, we'll break them a little bit down. You don't want anything to be stressed. Any fish that experience unnecessary stress is going to be more apt to get sick, and more apt to be something like bacteria can get in, or just ick, or just something that can make them sick when they're stressed. So you want to keep everything down stress-wise. And if your tank mates don't match in tank parameters, that's going to cause one of them to be unnecessarily stressed. So similar personalities, sometimes similar body like size. You don't want one to be able to fit in the other one's mouth, or and if they're too nippy and aggressive and constantly... Betta's fins are really pretty and flowy, and they're just magnets for something that's a little bit on the aggressive side or nippy to just destroy their fins. And if their fins are always torn up, to me, they're more apt to get fin rot. Will they grow back over time when they're not stressed? Yes. But you still don't want them constantly on purpose to just be shattered and nibbed,
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Well, that's totally understandable. So then moving forward a little bit to what you were saying just a few moments ago, then why are we adding all these tannins to the water? Because, tannins, I understand, do a lot of things.
Yeah,
what's the purpose for the tannins for the beta or the betta?
Well, what do you think? Since you're asking me all these questions, what do you think it's for?
Well, I believe that tannin water is the best water conditioner you can have.
Yes, I feel like it's a really good antiseptic too, or an antibiotic for your fish. Some people just don't like the look of a black water tank. It's sometimes a lot, especially if you're not used to it, to come down and see your tank water like tea, dirt colored.
Looks like a good old Carolina sweet tea.
But it does, I feel like, really help. And you can do it you can have a solid black water tank, or like my tanks are still at this point all clear, but I will add some leaf litter. And when the leaf litter is a little bit fresher, it's a little bit darker, but it does, with water changes and time, lighten up. But that, I feel like tannins work as a really good just antibiotic, or an antiseptic, or just a water conditioner. I use it as a medicine. It's great for the shrimp. Like, there's all kinds of just benefits to it. But some people, again, don't like it. But with my water being so hard over time, that can, and it's not going to be instant, and it does take probably a while, but I feel like just slightly it helps buffer my water to where it's just not quite as hard, to where it's easier on them, because I do have such liquid rock water here.
Well, because I know that the betta or beta prefer a pH a little bit more on the lower side. They like a 6.5 to a 7.
I think is ideal, whereas my water sometimes can get closer to an 8. We do have a higher pH, but I've also made the mistake in the past where I would always get distilled water, and I would just constantly use distilled water. And in theory, as long as it's diluting, it's fine. But if there's a point I'm never refreshing those minerals and I'm just using distilled water, that wasn't all that good either, because they still need like calcium and things in the water too, just maybe not quite as hard. But like you said, a pH of a 6.5 to a 7 is ideal. If it's like a 7.1 and they are coming, mainly just keep your water parameters consistent. Don't have big fluctuations. Especially if they're coming from a local breeder or your local fish store, or they're locally bred, and that's what they're used to, then that's great. But if they're coming from someone that's super soft water, they're going into hard water, I think it's going to be a little bit easier on them. But if they're going like if I have some and they're used to hard water and they're going into, even that's going to be hard on them too. Yeah. So as long as it's consistent, I think it's best, especially if they're born into it. But if they have drastic differences, it's not going to work. But ideally, like you said, if they're 6.5 to a 7.
Yeah, 6.5 to 7 on the pH, and then the DH, your density of hardness, they don't like super hard water, which ours is super hard. You mentioned the distilled. You can add some distilled water just to dilute.
Yeah,
but they still have to have those minerals in the water.
My mistake, going back to the mistake in this, was I was kept using it to the extent there was nothing left but distilled water. In distilled water, there's nothing.
There's zero mineral.
So that's not, you don't want to do that. So
they like a low mineral count. I believe it's like 20 DH is what they like. Is what they like is like, again, to the ideal number, but they do have to have minerals. So you can't just put them in strictly, as you said, distilled water. It's not going to work.
And I just know through the years that they appreciate clean water. Having good water quality is really important, because growing up, like I said, when I would have a snail pass away and it would foul up my water, that's just, you don't want. And one of the special things about them is, yes, they can come up to the surface. They have the labyrinth organ where they can gulp air at the surface. But if they're just in disgusting, smelly, foul water because a bunch of snails, they're not going to do well regardless if they can breathe or not. There's an extent where it's just not going to work.
Well, that's going to mess the whole cycle of the tank, which is a whole nother topic. Yeah,
every fish that you keep is going to need clean water, and having a planted tank is drastically going to help you with water changes, especially if it's a heavily planted aquarium, to cut down on all that stuff, that the nitrates and the all that stuff, so you don't have to do as many water changes. But clean water is really important.
Clean water.
And something that simple to me took some time.
Clean water and consistent water parameter.
Yes, and they do need heat. When I was keeping them when I was younger, I had colder water tanks. They would run in the 60s at times, and the guppies did well. They still reproduced, but the beta bettas did not do as well. They were a little bit more lethargic. They were still active, but they weren't actively swimming like some of my other ones that I keep more recently, when they have 72 to 78 somewhere degrees Fahrenheit, somewhere in there. You could probably even go to 80. As long they just appreciate, they're tropical. So they need some
tropical fish.
They need some warmth.
They're not used to cold water.
Yeah. And you don't want to overfeed them. Like, overfeeding was another mistake that I made with every single fish I've ever kept. And when I talk about overfeeding, it does lead into feeding the wrong food. But I would go from overfeeding them once a day, where I just throw in tons of food at one time, to I would feed them once a week, once every couple days, and again, tons of food, and it was mainly fish flakes. And I don't think, knowing the information I know now, that they do like more insects. They appreciate more of a meatier diet. They can live on fish flakes 100%. They can, but I think it leads
That's not their best diet.
Yeah, it leads to I feel like some digestive type problems over time, but it worked. But I don't feel like it's doing you any favors with your clean water, your water, like overfeeding all that food. If they don't eat it, it's just going to rot at the bottom, and it's going to mess up everything. Your nitrogen cycle, everything's going to be thrown off by all that just constant rotting food at the bottom. So your
fish aren't having a good diet. You're changing the main factors that we just started talking about, of your water parameters and everything else. that they need the most.
And overfeeding is a big thing that it caused me a lot of problems that I just didn't know where they were coming from. And it was just because I was feeding so much. So now I like the granules, the really tiny granules. A lot of lines have. I like Extreme, and I like the Bug Bite, something that's got some insect larvae to it and a really small granule. And just a few, maybe in the morning, and like 1 or 2, 3 in the evening. You don't have to go crazy. They're tiny. They don't require handfuls of food multiple times.
For my wonderful little opinion about little I know, it's a little bitty fish with a lot of fins. It can't have a very big stomach. It's all fin and no body.
Yeah, and like it would just, I feel like, I don't know the specific in and outs, but if they would they're constantly begging for food. And I think that's one of the things, the guppies and most things, they're so cute. They come up and you can't help but want to feed them, but don't fall for it. And it leads to a lot of digestion problems, some constipation. I feel like their bodies swell because there's only so much room on the inside, and it just causes so many problems that are just unnecessarily, as simple as just don't feed them so much.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's hard. For them, it's not a nature food, it's a processed food. It'd be like us eating McDonald's every day.
Yeah, and like I said, you don't want, that was a mistake I did with I would just only feed fish flakes. And yes, I think that it's a staple. I will always feed flakes, but I don't feed them every day, every single meal anymore. I really think that they benefit from having some insect larvae or brine shrimp or something on the meatier side. It really does
a little
help.
More on the carnivorous side.
Yeah.
Even though it might be microscopic carnivorous as far as mosquito larvae and things like that. And
I feel like another mistake leading to like more of the wrong environment was I now put them in 10-gallon tanks that are heavily planted. For substrate, I usually cater more to my plants than my betta. It's more of like a sand, gravel, fluval mix concoction of a mix for my plants. And it's whatever. I don't have a specific one I like. I like floating plants, just whatever I can get. But having those plants really helps. But filtration is a big one too. I would put an air stone. Like I had an undergravel filter for a while when I was a kid, and I would put an air stone in there. But I really didn't give any time, energy, or effort to filtration on those tanks in the beginning. And they do benefit. I don't feel like they need heavy filtration. They do like the water a little bit, not stagnant, but really low water flow.
So you can have, to me, there's a big difference. You can have heavy filtration, but less flow. So what you're saying is whatever filtration you're using, you don't want a lot of flow on the output going back into the tank.
But they are smaller fish too. So if they're in a tank by themselves, or I like to put them with shrimp too a lot now, something that doesn't have a lot, they don't have a huge bioload. So if you have a heavily planted tank that's established with lots of bacteria with just shrimp and a betta, you don't even need like a powerful. You just need something that's low flow that keeps. Now, if you want to add more fish, like eventually I want to add some guppies to that tank, then yes, I'm going to have to up the filtration a little bit because I'm adding bioloads of each one of those fish to the tank. But if you're in a species only, like I like the Tetra Whisper filters or a sponge filter. They're on the quieter side, and that's plenty. But you don't want something that's like
that's what I mean. You don't want
them in a circle. Just they're all those, especially if it's a male. Like the females are really pretty too. They have really pretty fins, but some of the males have really long fins, and that's a lot of energy and effort to swim. So they kind of just And sometimes, too, side note, you just get a crabby one or one that just wants to pout. Some of them are really active and come up and like greet you. So everyone has a very different personality. But some of them, they just like to kind of just float or relax on a leaf. And I didn't realize that in the beginning that you do need like those resting spots, a hammock, somewhere where they can literally just relax and just rest.
Well, they're all fins. They're like the what is it? The early Elizabethan times.
Oh, sure,
of the women that wore the humongous dresses.
Oh, sure,
and couldn't hardly move.
Yeah.
Well, that's a Betta in my mind. They got this world's biggest dress around them. They got all these fins and little bitty body, and they're trying to move all of this.
I don't know if anybody's ever compared it to that before, but sure. Just know that it takes a lot of effort to swim around like that. So having a place...
It's the world's biggest hoop skirt, and they're trying to move it through water.
Mm-hmm. And they do like to hide, but if they're consistently hiding and they're never coming out, then they might be experiencing a little bit of stress. Something in there might be a little off, because they do, even the shyer ones swim around. So if they're just huddling in the back corner at the bottom and just like never coming out, you might find something. Because like we said earlier, stress is it's a beeline to disease. It's a beeline to them.
Water parameters are off. Something's wrong.
Something's off. And if they're experiencing stress, you're always going to have some point of stress. Just you can't relieve everything. But if you can get rid of whatever you can, just know that stress is a leading beeline to disease and then passing away. So,
well, and I feel that Bettas, they do, each one of them that we've had and still have, they all have their own personalities, and you kind of figure it out of who likes what, who's, like you said, more friendly, not as friendly, but they're active but not friendly, and this one's a little more shy, but it likes the plants a lot.
And the more you keep them, or I wouldn't say the more you keep them, because hopefully you keep the ones you have for a really long time, but the longer you keep the ones you have
and interact
and get to know them, it's a lot easier to know when they're acting off. In the beginning, it takes some time to get to know their personality and how they're acting, and some might like this over this, or some might like that over that. But once you get to know them and you get to know their behaviors and what they're like, it's a lot easier to identify when they are acting off. Because I've had them, like some that they were into coming up and seeing me, and we were all buddy. But after a water change, they hated me for like days. They would pout. And it's crazy how each one is so drastically different, but they're also beautiful. And I thought all short fins were females and all long fins were males, and that's not true either. There's short fin males out there too. So
and long fin females.
Yeah, I'm sure. So if I don't know breeding very well, but I know that that's a stressful behavior, so I always keep them separated. If you want to keep a sorority, I know nothing about it except the few things that not all work. If you have sisters, it's easier.
And how do you know if you have sisters? I don't know anybody that has a book besides the breeder.
You need a 75-gallon with a lot of areas that break up their line of sight. Males, you can keep more than one male, which is like you don't ever do that, but you need a lot of water volume, like a 75 heavily planted tank. Same with the sorority, a lot of places to break up their vision, and they can have their own territory. If you're just keeping the tanks,
so they're like little gang members.
Yeah. If you have smaller tanks like we've been talking about, 10 or 20, don't just keep one in there. Just keep one in it. You do yourself some favors.
You know, a little gang member Bettas. You stay on your side of the tank, I stay on my side of the tank.
And you can, I'm trying to think over the years. I've mainly kept them with guppies. I keep them mainly with shrimp now, plecos, certain tetra over the years. I've kept them with a few different things. I just don't, again, go for cichlids or anything that's going to be fin nippers or aggressive, because those fins are like, they're so pretty and they're just asking for it. So if you want to keep them in a community tank that's peaceful, personal, or personalities that are the same, smaller, maybe like some celestial pearl danios, something real peaceful. I do like the guppies though. It's just not, every once in a while you'll get that nippy guppy that you're like, really, what's up? What's up with this? But it's not very often. So
yeah,
and jumping's a big one. I've lost a lot of bettas through the years due to jumping. They are natural jumpers, so keep a lid on your tank, because they will jump.
Almost like they jump in real life, from like puddle to puddle.
Yes. And I think, like, do you have anything else? Kind of wrapping up a little bit. Mainly just, I like 10-gallon tanks that are heavily planted.
That's a big thumbs up for me when you say planted. I believe
it's
for the
wonderful.
best, most peaceful tank, you plant that tank.
Yes. Floating plants, any type of plants, a lower like water output, a lower flow to your output, so they're not swirling around, but a filter will do them good.
Yeah,
Don't
I mean, good filtration. Obviously, I distinguish filtration. You can have great filtration but low flow.
Yeah,
and you can have great filtration and high flow.
Yeah.
And you can have the reverse. You can have really cruddy filtration and high flow.
Yes.
I mean,
and that's the perk to having your tank set up for a while too, is having it well established. You have that good biological filtration built up, so then you could have your mechanical filtration to help you out too. You just don't want them swirling around in a circle. Never.
You don't want the toilet bowl effect.
I like hang on the backs. I add some extra media. I don't use the cartridges, the carbon inserts, so I'll use some aquarium media and some sponges to help build up that biological filtration that's more natural.
That good bacteria.
But you mainly don't leave them in a small vase or a small bowl that's just stagnant with nothing, because you don't want them in soured water that's just crazy up and down. That's not good for any fish.
No.
So
absolutely.
That's
the worst possible scenario ever. Just because in the wild they live in shallow puddles, they don't stay in those shallow puddles forever.
Well, and and I will say, yes, that is true. But the bettas that we're talking about that we do get in the small cups at the fish store have probably never experienced a natural puddle a day in their life. They probably haven't experienced that. But
no, they're domesticatedly bred.
But that genetic factor of being really good jumpers is still really there.
Yeah, it didn't ever go away. It's bred into them. So, it's in their DNA.
Yeah, it's just keep the lid. I'm really bad at forgetting to put the lid on the tank
and turn the lights off.
Yeah, and turning off the lights. So just make sure that all fish are jumpers, but they're exceptionally good at it. And keep the stress down. Keep the stress down the best you can. Turn off the light. Give them some rest time. Give them some places to rest. Give them a stress-free environment that they're not constantly getting chased or nipped. Keep some tannins in the water, some leaf litter, driftwood if you can. That really does go a long way. And if you can always boil some leaves and just put a little bit, a couple teaspoons. You don't have to make it completely brown water. So you could do a couple leaves or just get the extract of the leaf juice when you boil it and add a little bit. I think you can refrigerate it for like a week if you want to have some tannins, and you can add a little bit at a time. So that really does help.
Yeah. I mean, because otherwise they say you can add Indian almond leaves. Well, you can get that as an extract. You can add part of that.
There's all different ways to do it. And I order a lot of it, but I also get some locally. We have a Missouri Catawba type tree.
That has almost the identical benefit.
I don't feel like it lasts as long, but it still works really well. So
quicker.
Just do your research. I'm not sure. There's a few leaves out there that I'm sure don't work, but I stick with the Catawba leaves. They work really good. What else? Don't overfeed. Do not overfeed your tank. Please do yourself a favor. If you take one thing from this, don't overfeed your fish and feed them the right diet. Don't, fish flakes are a staple, but don't always feed them. Lean more on something that has a meatier substance to it, meatier protein.
Some sort of heavier protein, larva style.
I believe, they're omnivores, but I think there's an insectivore too. And so, yes, can they eat a little bit of veggie protein? Of course, but give them that meatier protein.
Yeah, give them more of that insect-based diet. Give them more of those larva-type proteins that they need as far as mosquito larvae.
And I'm not going to actively put mosquito larvae in my fish room like I do my outside tubs, but there's a lot of foods that have
you can buy, you can purchase that have all that in it.
Yes, like we said, I like the extreme food line and I like the bug bites. So they're really good. But warm, clean water, do your water changes a little bit once, like 10 to 20% at least once a week. If it's more heavily planted, maybe every other week, but do water changes. Get yourself a good filter in a well-established tank with some substrate that benefits your plants.
Heavily agree. Plant that tank. Give yourself a place for your Bettas or Betta to rest. And then that way, with all that greenery around that Betta or Betta, it will pop all those stunning colors of that fish and the beautiful finish. And you'll have yourself a wonderful little showpiece tank that you can look at all day long.
One thing that we'll end the show with is I learned every fish you'll pretty much keep does not appreciate chlorine. They just don't. They don't appreciate it in the water. Same with your plant. Like there's nothing, your beneficial bacteria, there's nothing really that appreciates chlorine in the water. So use a water conditioner or age your water, let it gas out. Do not use just straight tap water.
Oh, absolutely not. On any fish tank. I do
just
not
don't do
recommend it.
They are sensitive, but like I said, I mean, every fish to me, you could say that. So, and it'll do tremendous awful things to your cycle. So don't use anything that has a possibility to have chlorine in it. So get yourself a good water conditioner, let that age, gas out, do whatever you can, but do not use water for your water change that has chlorine in it.
And that will help you down the road of wonderful water parameters.
Is there anything else you want to say? You want to add? We always probably forget something, but I feel like if you made it this far, hopefully you can learn from my mistakes and be even better at keeping your bettas. So
keep that betta, plant that tank. Like I said, make that fish pop.
They're so beautiful, and you don't want to lose them too soon because they are really enjoyable to keep. They're beautiful. They come in every different pattern and color combination you can possibly think of, and there's more varieties than I ever imagined. So when you get one, you want to extend its life as long as you possibly can. So I hope you learned something from this podcast to help you with that. So if you would like to watch this podcast, check out ScienceGal Aquatics on YouTube under the memberships, and you can watch this podcast. But I would like to dedicate this particular show to our friend, Chattanooga Ed, who just had surgery. And I know he watches and listens to this podcast. So I hope you feel better and get better soon.
Get better soon, buddy.
Much love to you. But thank you.
Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, we discuss another wonderful dilemma and the mistakes we have made.
But thank you so much, and we'll talk soon. Bye.
Bye.